You don't realize how loud silence can be until you're the only one left in a building that shouldn't be silent at all. I used to work the late shift at a corporate office in Denver. The building was older than any place that should have been hosting tech companies. But the rent was cheap and management didn't care about aesthetics. Most days, it felt like a normal office, but after 10 p.m., it felt like something else entirely. I learned that the hard way. My job was simple: finish reports, organize incoming requests, and leave the place locked up. I was the last employee in the building every night except for the janitor, Dave, who usually left around 9:30. After that, it was just me, and every creak, hum, and flicker felt like it was watching me. One Wednesday night, I was finishing a quarterly report that was overdue. My boss had emailed me earlier: stay until it's done. Don't clock out early. Annoying, but not unusual. The building was dead quiet. Floor 6, my floor, had this constant, faint buzzing sound from the fluorescent lights. I had gotten used to it, but that night, it felt louder, almost like it was pulsing. I remember looking up from my monitor and scanning the empty cubicles. The space was huge rows of desks, glass offices, the break room, and long carpeted hallways. Everything was so still, it felt staged. I chuckled under my breath. Man, I'm losing it. But the moment I said that, the buzzing stopped completely. All the fluorescent lights above me flickered once, then went silent. I stood up instinctively, not scared, just thrown off. The building never got that quiet. Just as I grabbed my water bottle, I heard footsteps. Not loud ones, not the creaking kind. Soft, slow footsteps on carpet. And they were coming from the far end of the hallway, the west wing. The part of the floor that should have been locked after 7 p.m., Dave. I called out. No answer. The footsteps stopped for 3 seconds, then continued, a little faster this time. My stomach tightened. I walked toward the entrance of the hallway and peered down it. Dark. All the lights in that wing were off, except the emergency exit sign, a glowing red sign hovering in the blackness. That's when I heard it, a whisper. Just one word, carried faintly through the hallway. Hello. Except it wasn't directed at me. It sounded like someone testing their voice. Someone unsure. Someone very close to the ground. I backed up fast. I called out again, louder this time. Dave. Seriously, man, quit messing around. Still nothing. I turned back toward my cubicle when my phone buzzed. New email. From Facilities Automated Notice Time, 10:41 p.m. It read, motion detected. Floor 6, West Corridor, after-hours alert. Last authorized badge entry, 9:32 p.m. Janitorial staff. A cold feeling washed over me. If Dave left at 9:30, and my badge was the only one registered after that, then who was walking in the West Corridor? I grabbed my stuff and decided I'd relocate to the 4th floor lounge area until I finished the report. I walked toward the elevator quickly, trying not to look back. I pressed the elevator button repeatedly. The little screen above it blinked between floors, like it was confused. Finally, it stopped on 6. The doors slid opening, pitch black inside. The elevator lights were off. Only a faint red glow from the panel inside. That elevator had never been dark before. Something inside me whispered, "Don't step in there." I backed away, hit the stairwell door instead. The second I entered the stairwell, the air felt colder. Not like air conditioning cold, like basement cold, heavy and damp and unnatural. The door slowly closed behind me with a soft click. Halfway down the first flight of stairs, I heard it again, footsteps. This time, coming down from the floor above me, from the 7th floor, except no one worked on 7. The footsteps were slow, dragging, like someone injured or tired. I whispered, "No way." The pacing got louder, closer. I moved faster, almost jogging down to floor 5. My hand gripped the stair rail. It's hard my knuckles ached just as I reached the 5th floor landing. The footsteps above suddenly stopped. I held my breath. Then, tap, tap, tap. Soft tapping on the metal stair rail above me like fingers. Tapping slowly, deliberately. I didn't dare look up. I pushed the door to floor 5 open, and froze. The lights in the hallway were flickering, violently buzzing, so loud it hurt my ears. At the far end of the hallway, a figure was standing, not moving, not speaking, just standing there. The flickering lights made it impossible to see their face clearly, but it looked like they were turned slightly, most like they were listening. Then they stepped forward. One step, slow, heavy. The lights flickered again, and the figure was closer. 2 steps this time. I whispered, "Stay back," even though my voice barely came out. The lights went out completely, pitch black. Then a whisper, right behind me, closer than anyone should have been able to get. "Don't leave yet." I bolted. I ran down the rest of the stairs, skipping entire sections, practically throwing myself toward the first floor exit. I didn't look back. I didn't want to. When I burst through the first floor lobby, everything was silent again. Normal lighting. No flickering. No footsteps. I ran outside into the freezing night, and that's when it hit me. My car wasn't the only one in the lot. There was a second one, parked crooked, lights off, driver door slightly open. I had never seen that car before. Inside, faintly illuminated by the security lights, was a security badge, a floor 6 badge, a badge with a name I didn't recognize. The next morning, I reported everything. Management brushed it off faulty wiring. I must have imagined the footsteps. The motion alert was probably a glitch, sure, except 2 weeks later, HR sent an email. "Please keep an eye out for former employee Mark Delvin. Badge was never returned. Do not allow access." It's the photo attached. It was the same car in the lot, the same badge, the same face, and the timestamp of his last recorded building entry. 3 years before that night. No one ever found his badge, his car, or him. Sometimes, when I think about that night, I wonder if I ever passed him in the stairwell, or if he was the one whispering behind me, or worse, if he's still in the building, walking those halls after dark, waiting for someone else to stay late. Some nights at work feel long, but the night I met a manager who wasn't supposed to exist felt endless. I worked the late shift at a small hardware store in Oregon. It's one of those old, narrow stores that smells like dust, rusted nails, and damp cardboard. We close at midnight, and I'm usually the one shutting everything down. My boss, Henry, trusted me with keys because he said I was responsible. Honestly, I think he just didn't want to stay late. Our night shifts were always quiet. A few last-minute customers grabbing duct tape or light bulbs. Maybe a trucker wanting batteries. It was peaceful until one night it WASN, single quotes. It was a Thursday in October, the kind of night where the wind rattled the old front windows like someone tapping to be let in. We didn't have many customers, so I spent most of the time reorganizing the plumbing aisle at around 11:10 p.m. I heard the front door chime. I looked up, expecting some late-night shopper. Instead, a tall man walked in slowly, almost deliberately. He wore an outdated gray uniform, way older than our current company shirt's hand. His name tag was scratched and faded. All I could read was, "Manager." We didn't have night managers. Not anymore. I straightened up. "Hey, can I help you?" He didn't answer. Not a word. He just looked around like he owned the place. His face was pale in a washed-out way, like someone who hadn't seen sunlight for years, and his movements were strangely stiff, almost controlled. I tried again, half nervous, half annoyed. "Double quote, sir, just so you know. We close in about 50 minutes. He turned to look at me and smiled, but there was something wrong with the smile. It didn't reach his eyes. They stayed cold, completely disconnected. He walked down aisle 3 without speaking, and for some reason, temperature seemed to drop with him. I tried to brush it off. Probably some weird guy who found an old uniform online. People do stupid things. Still, kept glancing toward aisle 3 to make sure he wasn't stealing anything. But every time I looked, he wasn't where I had last seen him. Rather than pacing aisle 3, I'd spot him at the end of aisle 1, or near the paint section, or standing outside the employee-only door at the back. It was like he moved too fast, too quietly, too intentionally. Around 11:30, I went to the back room to drop off inventory sheets. While I was flipping through some labels, I heard soft footsteps enter the room. I looked up. It was him. He just stood there, filling the doorway, blocking it. I forced a shaky laugh. Sir, customers aren't allowed back here." He tilted his head slightly, like studying the shape of my words rather than the meaning. Then his mouth twitched again. Not a smile. Almost like he was practicing one. I stepped closer to the wall, trying to create space. He didn't move. Then he did something that made my blood go cold. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a set of old keys, and placed them gently on the table beside me. They were rusty, outdated, keys to locks we hadn't used in over a decade. One key even had a worn tag on it, back basement. But we didn't have a basement. Not anymore. It was filled in years before my time. I whispered, barely audible, "Where did you get these?" His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Like he was shaping words he physically couldn't release. He was trying to talk, but there was nothing coming out. I backed away fast. "Okay, I'm calling Henry." He didn't react. Not a flinch. Not a blink. Just staring. When I stepped around him to leave, he turned slightly, like he was listening to something behind me. I rushed to the front counter and hit speed dial for Henry. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. The store was uncomfortably silent. The kind of silence that pushes into your ears. Then our lights began turning off. Not all at once. One row at a time. Click, click, click. Starting from the back. Moving toward me, the building grew darker and darker. I grabbed the store phone and dialed security instead, before it could ring. A voice spoke behind me, low, breathy, unnatural. "He won't answer." I spun around, but no one was there. My chest tightened. My hands shook so badly I dropped the phone. Then I realized something that made my stomach drop. Hadn't heard the door chime in the last 20 minutes. The manager never left. He was still inside somewhere. I forced myself to walk down the front aisle toward the electrical section, where the lights were still on. That's when I heard whispers, but not in English. Soft, broken, like someone repeating instructions they couldn't understand. I gripped a flashlight from the counter and turned it on. "Sir," my voice cracked. "Store's closed. I need you to come up front." No response. Just the faint sound of something metal dragging across the linoleum floor in aisle 7. I stepped closer, breathing shallow. When I turned the corner and aimed the flashlight down the aisle, nothing. Except a trail. A long, thin scrape mark running from aisle 3 into aisle 7. Then stopping at the emergency exit door. The metal bar on the door was shaking slightly, as if someone had just pushed it, or was still pushing. I whispered, "This isn't real," but the scrape marks said otherwise. Suddenly slam, the emergency exit door jolted outward violently, as if someone threw their whole weight against it. Alarm should have gone off. It didn't. The building stayed dead silent. I took a step back, ready to run for the front, when something moved in my peripheral vision. I swung the flashlight left. The manager was standing at the end of the aisle, perfectly still, facing me, hands stiff at his sides. His eyes were wrong, wide, unblinking, reflective like glass. I croaked out, "What do you want?" This time, he opened his mouth. A dry clicking sound came out, like bones tapping together. Then, check. The basement. I froze. We don't have a basement. His head twitched sharply, like something glitching. Yes, you do. The lights in aisle 7 flickered. The emergency exit door pushed open again this time, revealing a dark stairwell behind it. Stairwell that wasn't supposed to exist. Stepped toward the exit slowly, flashlight trembling in my hand. The manager didn't move. He just watched. The cold air pouring from that stairwell smelled like earth and metal and something stale. Almost dead. I shined the flashlight downward. Concrete steps. Old wooden railing. Damp walls. Far below. Farther than any basement should go. Something shifted, I whispered. Nope, not going down there. Suddenly, footsteps began racing up the stairs, fast, too fast, coming straight toward the open door. I slammed it shut, but it bounced back open as if someone pushed from the other side. I kicked it again. Then again, the footsteps stopped right on the other side of the threshold. And then, knocking, soft, polite, 3 knocks. I staggered backward. When I looked to my left, the night manager was gone completely. That's when I saw movement in the reflection of a metal shelf, a pale face. Behind me, I spun around. Nothing, but on the ground. Those old rusty keys were lying right at my feet, and the tag didn't say back basement anymore. It now said, let him out. I quit the next morning. I didn't give a 2-week notice. I didn't pack up my stuff. I never even went back for my final check. A week later, the store shut down completely. They claimed structural issues. The former employees whispered something else. That old stairwell used to be real, and the last night manager before Henry went missing down there more than 15 years ago. Some nights, I swear, I hear that dry, clicking voice in my dreams, repeating the same words. Check the basement. And I know, if I ever did, something would be waiting. I always thought the creepiest part of my workplace was the empty warehouse, till I realized the mirror in our break room was reflecting someone who wasn't there. I worked the late shift at a large furniture distribution center. It's the kind of building that feels endless when you're inside a long concrete floors. Tall metal racks, humming fluorescent lights that flicker on their own schedule. My shift ran from 4 p.m. to midnight, and most nights, by 11, the place was a graveyard, a silent one. There were only 2 areas with any real comfort to them: the security office and the break room, which was small but warm and brightly lit. That's where the story I'm about to tell you takes place, or starts at least, because it ended in a much darker part of the facility. It was a Tuesday, remember, because Tuesdays were inventory days, which meant the managers stayed late, logged numbers, and stressed over shortages. By 10:30 p.m., everyone had left, except me and one security guard named Malik. Malik usually stopped by the break room around 11 to grab coffee before making his final round. But that night, he didn't show. I didn't think much of it. I warmed my leftover biryani in the microwave and sat down in front of the big rectangular mirror above the sink. It was installed there for reasons no one understood. It wasn't a barbershop. After all, but it had been there since before I was hired. I ate my food, scrolled my phone, and occasionally glanced up at my reflection. Everything looked normal, until it DN'd single quotes, too. I lifted my cup to drink water. The reflection lifted his cup too, but a second later, felt an icy sensation run down my neck, because in the mirror behind me, standing in the doorway, was a man, a tall, gray-skinned figure in a dark hoodie, not moving, just standing there. My real-world heart jumped. I spun around in my seat, but the doorway behind me was empty, completely empty. When I turned back to the mirror, the man was gone. I froze there for a long moment, gripping the edge of the table, my breath shaky. I even got up and checked the hallway. Nothing. When I returned to the table, I told myself it had to be a trick of the light. The break room had one of those older mirrors that distort slightly from age. I forced myself to finish my food. But I didn't look at the mirror again. Not that night. The next night, the mirror incident still bothered me, but I chalked it up to fatigue. Midnight shifts can mess with your head. Around 10:45, I went to the break room again. The fluorescent ceiling lights buzzed loudly, flickering every so often. The mirror looked dull in the dim light. I sat, unwrapped my food, and that's when I heard it. A whisper, right behind me. A low, breathy sound. "Hey." I felt the hairs on my arms rise instantly. I turned around, nothing but the hallway again. I swallowed, trying to steady my breathing. Maybe Malik was messing with me. He liked to scare the newer employees sometimes. "Malik," I said. No answer. I stood and walked to the hallway, empty, as I reached back for the break room door. I heard the whisper again, but this time it was even closer. "Look," directly into my right ear. I jumped so hard I dropped my food on the floor. I spun around, but again. The hallway was empty, but when I turned back toward the break room mirror, I saw it, the tall gray figure again, standing inside the break room. Reflection, even though the break room behind me was empty. This time it was closer, standing right behind my chair, motionless, staring. I backed away slowly, my hands trembling, and then the figure in the reflection tilted its head. Like it was studying me, the real-world room behind me remained empty. I ran out of the break room and didn't return for the rest of the night. The next day, I told Malik what I saw. He didn't laugh. He didn't call me crazy. He just stared at me with this uncomfortable expression and said, "Bro, you saw him too." That sentence chilled me more than the mirror ever did. "What do you mean, him too?" I asked. He lowered his voice, like the walls were listening. "I've been seeing someone in the cameras. Same build, same hoodie, but he's never actually there when I check. Only in reflections. Or shadows." My heartbeat grew heavier. "You're serious?" Malik nodded slowly. "I think something's in this building after midnight, and it shows itself only when you're alone." That didn't help. Not at all. 2 days later, I tried to avoid the break room entirely. I ate, standing up by the loading docks, or took my break early when other workers were still around. But on this particular night, it was freezing cold in the warehouse. So I went to the break room to warm up. I didn't look at the mirror. I didn't even want to. But eventually, my eyes drifted upward. My reflection was there. The room behind me was empty. Good. I sighed in relief. But that relief lasted exactly 1 second, because my reflection didn't move when I did. I raised my hand. It didn't. I leaned forward. It stayed still. My reflection's eyes were fixed on the door behind me. I felt every muscle in my body tightening. The air grew cold, heavy, thick, and then my reflection smiled. I didn't. My real face was frozen in fear. But the reflection's smile widened slow, unnatural, stretching thin across its face. Then its head turned, slowly, toward me. I stepped back, heart pounding wildly. The lights flickered, and the reflection mouthed a single word. "Mine." The lights went out. I screamed and stumbled backward, falling into a chair in the darkness. I heard footsteps, slow, dragging footsteps, moving toward me. I scrambled up, hands shaking uncontrollably, trying to reach the door. My fingers found the knob, and I yanked it open. Light from the hallway flooded in behind me. But before I could escape, I felt something brush the back of my neck, cold, dry, like someone's fingertips. I ran. I didn't look back. I ran straight to the security office. Malik saw my face and immediately locked the door. "You saw him?" he said quietly. I didn't deny it. Malik told me something he hadn't before. "The mirror isn't just old," he said. "It's from the old part of the building. They salvaged it from the employee locker room in the original factory. A worker died there. Night shift guy. People," said he, "never left." I stared at him. "That's what you tell me now?" He shrugged helplessly. Management doesn't take it seriously, but the night shift guys do. He pulled up the hallway camera outside the break room. My blood ran cold in the footage. You could see me running out, but a split second after, a tall, dark figure stepped through the doorway and stared into the hall. Only on camera, not in real life. Then it faded back into darkness as if melting into the wall. I felt sick. I should have quit. I should have walked out and never come back. But Rent doesn't care about ghosts. This week passed with nothing strange happening. I started convincing myself it was stress or imagination until Thursday that night. Malik called in sick, so I was the last one in the building. I tried to stay near the front entrance, but around 11:40, I heard something fall inside the break room, a loud crash, like a chair tipping over. I froze. My entire body told me to leave it alone. But curiosity, fear, and a need to know if I was losing. My mind pulled me toward the hallway, the break room. Light was flickering violently. The door was half open, and some instinctual part of me told me not to go inside. But I did, slowly. When I stepped into the room, it looked normal, except the mirror. The mirror was fogged over, like someone had breathed all over it. A handprint appeared on the glass, then another, and another, dozens of them, and then the fog cleared instantly and I saw him, the tall figure, standing behind me, closer than ever. I spun around. No one was there, but in the mirror, he was right behind me. He leaned and closed his head inches from mine and whispered, "Stay." The lights blew out. Everything went black. I ran blindly out the door, tripping over the threshold and sprinting down the hallway without stopping. I didn't clock out. I didn't shut anything off. I didn't even grab my bag. I just ran to my car and sped away. I never went back. HR called me, then management, then payroll. I ignored all of them. 2 weeks later, Malik sent me a photo, a still frame from the warehouse security camera. It was the break room, the mirror, and standing in front of it was me. Except it wasn't a clip from when I worked there. It was from yesterday, bro. Malik texted, "You were here last night." I wasn't. I was at home, sleeping, but the figure in the picture, it looked exactly like me, standing in front of the mirror, not moving, not blinking, just staring into it, like something had taken my place. Or worse, something in that mirror was learning how to look like me. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.